Innovative is creative thought, which is, I would argue, a hypnotic state.
All right. So welcome to another episode of the Bridging Divides podcast, where we help you bridge the divide to success by giving you the advice, tools, and resources that you need to do so. We do that on the podcast by finding the individuals out there who have had success in their lives and are now doing the same for the people around them by helping them bridge those divides. Our guest today is Dr. Amy Rosner. Super excited to talk with her today in her home, in her office here that she has. It's such a beautiful place. Just to kind of go over a couple of accolades, I want to introduce her and give her the proper introduction. She has a PhD in Experimental Psychology, major in Biopsychology, and minor in Experimental Neuro-Psychology.
Excellent.
Just fascinating. Yeah.
Well done.
I gotta
It's a mouthful, I know.
say all those things, but I wanted to share. It was so amazing. Published research in peer-reviewed journals, which that's so cool that you've done that. I want to ask you a little bit about that later. Graduate of Hypnotherapy Academy of America, which is the most rigorous hypno training available, correct?
In the world, yeah.
In the world. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so cool. Certified in professional coaching, primal health coaching. She has her private practice here in Mesa. Does individual sessions and classes in person and online worldwide. That is quite the list of
all the way to
accomplishments.
Japan. So
That's
I'll across
fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, we are excited to have you, and
I'm
welcome.
excited to be here. Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so we'll dive right into it here. We like to start off with kind of a fun fact, and your fun fact is...
Was it fun?
Was great. So you said here...
I don't know how many people know about that, actually.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I don't know if we're divulging.
I don't know if I should even say it. But
you said that you beat a lie detector test. You've got to tell
at the Phoenix Police Department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please tell us about that whole thing.
So some people know this. I used to be a Phoenix police officer, and part of getting that job is having a lie detector test based on the information that you give them for the application. So they want to know if you're lying to them. Right. And in this kind of setting, keep in mind, if you lie about anything, you're fired. So, for example, all the way through the academy, toward the end, there were two guys that lied about doing their homework. And they were fired.
No,
and they were great candidates. They fired. Yeah, you have to be really.
Which is understandable.
Yeah,
I mean they want to make sure
they're held to a much higher standard.
As it should be.
Sounds like there's more corruption in police departments, but there's actually not. It's way less than anywhere else you're going to find. Yeah,
wow.
Way less than people think. They're held to a very rigorous standard. So I went into the lie detector test, and I knew how my background's in physiological psychology, so. That's my stuff, I knew exactly. I had never taken one, but I knew how they were given. And so I came in and I found the camera and I just smiled at the camera and I sat there and waited because I knew the first part of the interview was observing me before they came in. And then this guy, right. And then this guy comes in who's as big as a house. He was the most intimidating looking man I've ever seen in my life. And he came in, no smiles or anything, and he sits down and stares at me. And he explained the first part of the test, the baseline part of the test. And it was, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into.
Please. A good story can never have too much detail.
So
please.
The baseline test was pick a number between 1 and 10, not 1 and not 10. And that's your number, and you're going to write it on a piece of paper and sit on it. And then he's going to ask me, is it 1, is it 2, is it 3, is it 4, and go through 10. And then he's going to see what, because you've got all kinds of, electrodes and apparatus on you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're measuring all kinds of different physiological responses that your body has to what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And except for a certain small subset of the population, when you lie, you have a certain profile physiologically that you can see in those readings. And so they can tell when they get to the one that you're sitting on, they say, is it that number? And you say, and you say no, then they know you're lying. They can see how it differs than the rest. Then they can compare your responses on the questions that really matter to those baseline responses, right?
Cool.
And so I don't know what made me do this. I'm such a rule follower and everything, but I think part of me has always been very excited to see if I could, change the machinery up here with my thoughts to the point where it would come out in an objective physiological measure. And there can't be many people who've actually had that thought because, kind of go occupational hazard, I guess, you know? And so... I won't tell you exactly how I did it because I don't know, that might not be good for some people shouldn't know how to do that. But anyway, what I did, just from thinking, I made my head do a certain thing, and the interviewer looked at my responses on the computer screen and then looked at me and looked at the computer and looked at me and said, "What did you do?" And I said, and I told him exactly what I did. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because the computer says that this is your number, but I think this is your number." And he was right. I beat the computer, but I didn't beat him.
So he had the intuition.
From the experience he had, looking at the physiological responses people make, comparing them to what the computer says is alive versus, it's not an exact science, but there is a lot to it. I mean, there's a good physiological basis for that testing.
Well, that reminds me of like the people that have been in the military for a long time, and they spend their whole careers looking at radar and what we would see as two identical blips. That's got to be an airplane. And one is an airplane, one's a missile. And nobody can tell the difference except for them because they know just the slightest difference because of how they've been trained and conditioned. Right. Fascinating. I love that.
So he was all excited when I told him what I did. He had never heard of that. I had never heard of it either. I just came up with it. I don't know why. I didn't even plan it or anything. It just struck me when I went in there to take the test.
That's fascinating.
So we had a really good time. And he's like, "Oh, you got to come work here. We got to go to conferences together and stuff." And,
that's
then he was like my best buddy. Big as a house, intimidating guy. I had an awesome 3-hour lie detector test, and it was a lot of fun. So.
I love hearing that. The kind of a little bit of the mischievousness of it. I thought that was so.
I have a little bit of rebel in me, just enough, just
a pinch. Yeah. No, but I love that because really that also highlights the power that we really have. Because you and I were talking about before this how this is really a business podcast about how to succeed in business in your career and giving you the tools. Advice, tools, and resources, right, to do that. But we also focus on things like positivity and emotional resilience and being able to continue going forward even when everything is telling you that you shouldn't, or that you can't, or that you're not worthy of it, or whatever, And so that really, I think, showcases the power of the mind over body.
Oh, yeah.
That's fascinating.
That whole mind over matter thing is a real thing.
Yeah. No, I love that. So we're diving right in here. This is the part of the podcast where we want to really get into the meat of the matter, where we want to know what divides your bridging and how. That looks like services that you offer, products, books, which you have written, Amazon bestseller author, which is so cool to me. So we want to hear about all of those things and kind of what has led you to that point. But go ahead and kind of give us kind of an overview of what you do and what's the issue that you're resolving and how you resolve it.
So basically what I do is help people get rid of negative programming in their brains. So it's when we're little, we don't have a whole lot of that generally, and we can just be ourselves, and we can get interested in things and just do them. And just, if we want to go, run and play, we go run and play, and we don't think about what somebody else is thinking about us, or whether we should do something or not. Sometimes our parents may wish we did, but we tend not to. And then as we get older, we start putting rules on things. We learn rules in school. We start putting them on things. About 11 years old, our conscious minds start to develop the way that we experience them today, with that voice in our head that's babbling at us all day. No, you shouldn't do that. You should do it this way. You should be more like this.
I call
very
mine
critical. Glenn. Effing Glenn.
Yeah. Anyway, please go on.
We all have a Glenn. And Glenn must die.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, when you're young, you don't have a whole lot of negative programming that's between you and the world.
Yeah.
And between you and the real you. So like the real you is that place where, that place of grace or spirit or whatever you want to call it, that is just you, doing whatever you want to do, how you want to do it, expressing yourself as you really are, that authentic you, right? Not taking other people's opinions into consideration. You're just you. And as we get older, we get more and more negative programming between us and, the world. And so, instead of just being us, we may think, okay, well, we're going into this situation. Who's going to be there? What do they think of us? And, how should I act? How should I dress? And all of these things start coming in. We're not good enough, right? We need to change who we are, and we need to change in ways that we think are going to be more acceptable to the other people that we're going to be seeing, right?
And then we give up who we are.
We give up. Yeah, that's right. We're not worthy as much as they are to see, us and not even the real us, just the us that we think we should put forward.
Yeah.
And we do that to varying degrees, but it gets harder and harder as we get older, because we get more and more of that programming. And so what I do basically is all about getting rid of that negative programming that's keeping the real us from running the show. Everything we do and think and feel should come from the real us, from who we are authentically, just being ourselves like we were when we were 5, and so I use a variation of techniques that can help to change how the associations in the brain are actually put together up there. Your brain does nothing all day, every day, except, change connections and strengthen some, and get rid of others and weaken others, and, add new ones. And so that's what it does. And there are ways that you can foster those changes without having to go through particular situations in life to do so. And they're brain hacks, basically.
That's so cool.
And that's what I do. I help people hack their brains so that they can get rid of the negative programming and just present themselves to the world as authentically them, and just enjoy like a more mature, hopefully, version of them when they were 5.
Oh, dude, that's so fascinating to me. Because I remember back when, I don't know, a few jobs ago, where they had somebody come in, kind of this motivational speaker guy, but it wasn't just kind of a one and done thing. He came in and, did a whole bunch of work, and they had worksheets that we then kind of went through to kind of focus on what we wanted to change and everything. And he talked about how the studies have shown the relation to between creativity and our age, and how whatever test they had kind of come up with that they had kind of studied over 20 some odd years showed that, within those first 5 years, we're super creative in our, the way that we look at things and the way that we try to fix things, and coming up with off the wall. It'll be 6 kids here in June. Oof. Off the wall is like the norm in my house.
Right.
But showing that as the kids got older, just how much it went down by the time they got to like 10. The amount of kids that were
That's
creative.
when we start learning rules in school.
Yeah, and they kind of showed a little bit of a correlation there. It was like 96% decrease. And then as you got even older, it went down to this tiny, tiny percentage, even smaller than 4% or whatever it was. And just how that does not benefit anybody in in relationships between friends, family, loved ones, but also business. You know, who wants to just have the same idea as the guy next to him?
You have to innovate.
There's no innovation.
Yeah.
You know, that creativity.
Innovative is creative thought, which is, I would argue, a hypnotic state. You have to be in a hypnotic state to think
Please
creatively.
go over that, because so I really want to also get into.
Remember what Einstein said: if at first the idea is not absurd, there's no hope for it.
Oh, I love that so much.
And creativity is just intelligence having fun. He said that
dude,
too.
I freaking love that. What a dude. He's got a lot of good.
Yeah, he's got a lot of
good one-liners. Yeah. But I do kind of want to talk about too, what the world sees as hypnosis, or you know, the whole stigma that it has, the stereotypical view of that, and what it actually is. Because you just said that creativity is
it's a hypnotic state.
Hypnotic state.
The most productive state you can be in is a hypnotic state. Have you ever been like really in the flow? You know, people use that term flow.
Yeah.
That's you're really into something. You're going, you know, in the zone, right? And you're being really productive, and everything's going really well. It's just flowing out of you. And somebody talks to you from 2 feet away, and you don't hear them, or you miss dinner because you're just so into it. You lost track of time. You're actually in a hypnotic state.
Wow.
In order to be the most productive, you need to be in a hypnotic state. In order to be the most, to have the best performance in sports, in music, I even had somebody who was a professional craps player. Same thing. He built himself a portable craps thing just to practice the throws.
That's crazy.
Really interesting. But all of that, any kind of performance, you have to be in a hypnotic state while you're performing to be at a high level. So all those high level athletes and everybody, they have rituals to get them into a hypnotic state, and they have to be there because they have trained so much, and they know, their bodies know exactly what to do, their vocal cords, everything, regardless of what your instrument is, what performing you're doing. You're so well practiced, so honed, that you can't send anything to committee up here. It has to be automated, completely automated. And if you start thinking about it, you're going to miss a note,
that's
right?
Where you screw up. You fumble or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't be reasoning. You can't be following logic. You can't be... You have to have all these processes going on together in a parallel fashion, and automatically. And it's under your awareness, because if we were aware of how that part of the mind actually operated, we would be completely overwhelmed all the time, because all these processes are going on in tandem. Right. So we can't be aware of them. We can't follow them. Well, the only thought processes we follow are conscious, not subconscious, because it's serial processing. It's if this, then this, then this, then this, you know, and we can follow that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that blows my mind, and that's so fascinating to me. So, can somebody hypnotize you?
No.
Because that is what people think.
No.
Right?
That is voodoo, and that is out of my scope of practice. I wish it was that easy. I could retire early, but no.
Yeah, I'll solve your problems.
No. Right.
So that's interesting to me. So when you are...
I can help you into a hypnotic state.
Right, that's what I want to know.
But it's up to you if you go there.
When you're providing hypnotherapy that you do with your clients, so you're essentially acting as a guide then.
Yeah, I'm just a conduit.
To help.
I'm a facilitator.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm not a therapist.
So the power is in their mind.
Yes, and so that means that a huge side effect of this kind of practice is self-empowerment.
Like, my brain is exploding right now, because that just flies in the face of so many schools of thought.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick break and say, if you guys are getting any value from this, if you guys are enjoying it, having a good time with us today, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Everybody says that, I know, but hey, can't beat them, join it. Just want to let you guys also know about our newsletter that we have coming out. It'll let you know about all the latest and greatest news that we've got, anything Bridging Divides related, all the events that we've got coming up, all of the different organizations, nonprofits out there that are doing awesome, amazing things that you can also be a part of. It'll also let you know about the book that I've got coming out, The Bridge Strategy. Super, super excited about that. And we'll let you know when that gets released. We'll also let you know about any additional nuggets of information and inspiration that we've got, different fun stories that we don't necessarily mention in these videos or episodes. So if that's something that interests you, then check it out in the description and we'll make you part of the Bridging Divides family. Excited to have you here. We'll get back into it.
That essentially, I mean, not that you don't need other people. That's one of the whole principles of this podcast, is that the bridge to personal success comes from working with other people, but you have to
have to do the work.
You have to do the work,
Yeah.
right? What I like to say is that bridges are built from two sides, but you have to lay the first brick. You know, there is that responsibility that you have.
We call it co-creative process.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's exactly how we succeed, right? But you're giving them the tools that they can then
I'm
use
like
on
your
their own.
Sherpa. So I've got the map and I've got your luggage on
Yeah.
the llama and I'm, showing you how to get to wherever it is you want to go, but you're determining where you're going. You
Love
paid
that.
for whatever the tour is and I'm just helping you get there.
Oh,
And I
fascinating.
make it easy for you to get there. But you're
dang
getting
it.
there yourself. If you didn't walk, you wouldn't get there.
That's so cool. So after you treat people come in to use you to guide them, how does that look like after they're done being treated?
So it's actually not a treatment. It's not like
Yeah,
I
explain
don't
that.
see anybody as broken. This is a big philosophical difference between like therapists and coaches.
Yeah,
and
please.
I'm a coach and I come from a coaching perspective. The way I like to describe it, and it's not 100%, but just as a kind of a general way
please.
of looking at it. If you're running around a track and you want to be able to do better, a therapist would be up in the stands watching you, making note of what you're doing wrong and, marking those things down, comparing them to a list of things you could do wrong that give you a particular label of something wrong with you, a diagnostic label, right?
Yeah.
And then diagnosing you if applicable with that label. And then based on the school of thought that they were trained in, come up with a treatment plan to fix you.
Okay.
Because you're broken. I never got into clinical psychology. I stayed in experimental because I didn't like that idea of seeing people as broken. In my view, what some people see as broken is actually the brain doing its job correctly, but has come up with some, half-baked ideas of what are the best approaches to do to get out of volatile situations, especially early in life.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is, the brain isn't fully developed until age 25. Okay.
Yeah.
So up until then, anything it's coming up with is half baked, right? So not always the best plan of attack.
That's what was going wrong.
Right. So, so when we're young and we have, some trauma going on, or we have, our parents divorce, or, things happen. There's always going to be, something going on, throughout our lives regularly that, is not going to feel good, and then we're going to try to come up with some way of getting around and being able to handle, being able to deal with it. And our
Interesting.
brains don't always come up with something that it may have served us in the moment, but later on, 30 years down the road, it may not be serving us anymore.
Interesting.
And so that programming has to go. But one of the problems is that sometimes it's like survival based,
Right.
programming.
Yep.
So it's real hard to convince the brain that it should get rid of something that it developed as a survival response. And so there are
Interesting.
certain techniques that can really help somebody's brain do that, and we can get rid of a fight or flight response that somebody had to a traumatic event 30 years ago, but it's still programmed in. They understand everything there is about it, they've done therapy for decades, but they still have that fight or flight response programmed in.
Yeah.
And so in usually one session we can get rid of that fight or flight response. It's gone. Give me 30 minutes, you'll never feel that again. And then there's fallout from that, so there are limiting belief problems and things
Yeah.
like this
Yeah,
that
yeah,
then
yeah.
of course we have to deal with. But that's how the brain learns to deal with something. When you're 5 and you're in a traumatic situation, your 5-year-old little brain is going to come up with some way to get around it, to feel okay about it, or to try to ensure it doesn't happen again. For example, there's a client that when she was 10 gave a book report, and she said something wrong and the class laughed at her and the teacher called her stupid. And it's amazing how
teacher
many
of the year.
examples I have of people doing that. But and so for 40 years, she chose jobs based on not having to give a presentation to anyone. And then eventually she's in this job and she's at a higher level and she can't just quit, but now she has to give a presentation to the board. And all it took was one session and getting rid of that fight or flight response, and she was able to give that presentation without a problem.
Wow.
But that was still there. She could still feel that in her body from being 10, because at 10, you can look back and say, oh, I was just a stupid kid. It's not a big deal. It doesn't affect me now. But when you were 10, that was the end of the world.
Right.
That end of the world programming is still there.
Right.
Even though you're older and you know it wasn't the end of the world. It's still there.
Interesting.
So you have to get rid, you have to find that. I kind of like poke for the emotional tender spots. One of my clients said, your whole job is to make people cry. And it's kind of true. I have to poke for the emotional tender spots. And when I find one, okay, boom, we need to do something about that. You shouldn't still be feeling any kind of negative emotional or physical feeling from something that happened years ago.
Right.
You shouldn't. That's programming that doesn't need to be there. So that's got to go.
No, I love that. And
otherwise, it'll affect you going forward when you're in a situation that's similar to, in some way, something that has one of those, bad programs attached to it. That bad program is going to come into the present and you're going to overreact. So if you find you're overreacting to certain things, that's because of old programming. It's not because of what's going on in your current life. This is just triggering that old programming.
wow, and that is very empowering to realize that, but also I feel like that allows you to have more compassion for other people.
And for yourself. It's
Yeah.
really hard sometimes to know, oh, I just can't stop from screaming at this person whenever I, start feeling like this. I just can't keep control of my feelings. I'm just, what's wrong with me? Well, there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain's doing what it's supposed to do. It's just that there's some maladaptive programming that was probably serving you pretty well at one time, but it's not now.
It's not now.
And it's survival related, so you can't just say, I'm not going to do that anymore. Doesn't matter how much cheerleading or how many swift kicks in the butt you have from people,
Yeah.
You're not going to just stop doing it.
Right. You have to go.
Otherwise, you would have stopped by now.
Right. You have to go back and take care of that issue
Yeah.
first, and then let's go forward.
And then you're already forward. Like you don't have anything holding you back.
Wow, I love
Yeah,
that.
and you can just go forward.
Getting rid of the ankle weight.
Yeah, and it gives you compassion for yourself, because we beat ourselves up all the time, And you may think, I get beat up by other people, but I bet you beat yourself up more than anybody else.
Oh yeah, we're our own worst critics.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
we need to be compassionate with and forgive ourselves for what we do that we don't like. And then we know, even if we're not responsible for that bad programming being there, because usually it's, a lot of it's put there when we're little, we don't have any control over who we grow
From
up with.
external
And
sources.
our brain's just trying to survive. It's trying to find a way around whatever's going on and to be a person.
Yeah.
That's our whole job when we're little, is learn how to be a person.
Right.
And so we do the best we can with the half-baked brain, and then we get older and then we reflect on things in our current behavior, and sometimes we're like, I really don't like this about myself. I really wish I could change this.
Yeah.
And you beat yourself up about it, but if you realize you're not responsible for that programming,
Yeah.
and you can't just change it on a dime by yourself. You just can't. It'd be nice if we could, but we can't.
Yeah.
But it is your responsibility, knowing it's a problem, to get help to fix it, to get rid of that programming and just get back to being you without the bad programming somebody else put there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what you're saying it reminds me kind of how, and there's a lot of different ways to say this, but essentially treat others how you want to be treated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times we treat people way better than we end up treating ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so you have to realize that it goes the other way too, is that you
Yes.
need to treat yourself and have the same compassion on yourself that you give to other people. That's just as vital
Absolutely.
and as important to be happy.
Yeah, I
you
totally
know?
agree. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And essentially, it sounds like this is, with this understanding that you essentially have this power to be able to do that. That you call it a superpower.
Oh,
with
I
one
call
of
it
your,
that with
your
a young
clients.
client
Yeah,
of mine.
Tell me
So-
about that, because I loved that story, and I think a lot of our viewers will relate to that.
So there's just amazing little 7-year-old boy that came to me a few years ago, and his mother came in too, and I was asking her, what do you want, from session? She said, don't talk to me. I'm just the chauffeur. He got online and decided he needed a hypnotherapist and he needed you. And so I'm just here. I just drove him here.
Dude,
so she
what
was
an
in the
awesome
back.
kid.
And when I would have a session with him, she'd go under too. And then she'd wake up at the end and she said that was just the best part of her day. And so she
Good
really
nap.
enjoyed it. Yeah. And so he was having a really hard time with a fear of heights and a fear of flying. And it had gotten worse and worse. Those fears tend to what we call generalize. And so it became a fear of open spaces and of people and things like that. And so it kept getting worse.
Yeah.
And he's only 7. I mean, where's that going to go? That could be really debilitating. And they already had to cancel family vacations because of it. So they were going on a trip to Seattle and they didn't want to cancel the vacation. And so this little kid decides, I'm not going to cancel the family vacation. 7 years old. I'm going to get help and I'm going to fix this. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I just love this kid. Anyway, so I started working with him, and the way I approached it was to let him know that he had a superpower. And just like his, the superheroes that he, watches on TV and the movies and stuff like that, he has a superpower.
Yeah.
And it's his subconscious mind. And he can interact with that part of his brain anytime he wants, and that he can let that part of his brain drive everything and take control and do exactly what he wants to do, feel the way he wants to feel. And so I worked with him for 3 sessions, and he was able to go on the vacation to Seattle. He had no problem. He did great. And then when he had a blanket, actually, he came in with a blanket. He had a blanket, security blanket, right? Because he was just so scared all the time, and he just felt like he needed that blanket. By the end of it, he wasn't bringing the blanket in anymore. And
that's awesome.
and they went to Seattle, and then the next year, the family went to New York City, and Mom sent me pictures of him on top of the Empire State Building looking down on the city of New York and smiling. And I thought, that's the coolest thing ever.
Which he never would have been able to do
Never
before.
would have been able to do. And then since then, couple years later, she called me and said, he's telling me his superpower is failing him because he has to do a solo in his little musical group at this concert.
Yeah.
And so he needs to come back in and have something happen with his superpower. So he came back in. 1 session, that's all it took. And she sent me a videotape of his concert and his solo, and he did a great job. And then since then, he's been going through high school, junior high and high school, and he has been he wants to be a marine biologist, and he's been flying all over the world, taking advantage of all these internships and other opportunities to study in all these almost every continent he's been on now, studying as a marine biologist.
That's incredible.
Before even getting to college. So.
I love that, and again, that's a perfect story of how. I mean, look at everything he was able to accomplish once he went back and took care of that block that he had. And now look at all of these things he's been able to accomplish because of that. I love that. And what a great kid to be able to recognize, hey, I need to address this now, It's funny that you say that because one time my kid, my oldest, I guess I should say, was having a tantrum about something insignificant. Well, what I thought was insignificant, it obviously was super important to him, but I was trying to I explained to him that if he wanted to stop having a tantrum, he could. And so I was like, you have a superpower. Essentially, I said almost, then, so I loved the story also is just because of, I was talking to my boy and he's like, what, I have a superpower? It's like, yeah, it's mind control, but not over other people, but over your own mind. And you can either use that to be a hero in your story and use it for good to help you, or you can be the villain of your story and use your superpower for evil, if you will. And you convince yourself of, I don't know, whatever insecurities or whatever whatever harmful behavior, So that's such a great...
it works really well, especially with young boys, so...
Yeah, because they're very much in that space. And I think also that if you look at it from a relationship standpoint or from a business standpoint, where let's say you're managing employees, being able to help them recognize that they have way more power than they might think. that think that they have. And so you give that to your employees. You're not only gonna, they're gonna have more respect for you. They're gonna have, more loyalty to what you're doing. They feel more empowered, like what they're doing actually matters. And then there's all sorts of things in business that would be better for you. You have less turnover, which costs you less money, and people are, if they're in sales, then they're able to sell more because they feel more empowered to do what they need to do. And so I love that.
People may not remember who you are or what you do, but they'll remember how you made them feel, right?
Absolutely. And I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how some influential person that had, they gained success, and they were saying it's lonely at the top. And the podcasters were analyzing that afterwards, and they were saying, like, it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. If you are building the other people up around you, then it's not going to be lonely when you're up there because you've built everybody up in order to get there.
Yeah.
And
that makes a lot of sense.
I love that. So kind of going through a couple of these things here, I want to hear about, so you said here that you, on your website, which we want to know, where we can reach you. So we'll ask now, where can they get access to your services, books, courses, all of these different things that you offer? Where can they do that?
AmyRosner.com. So it's AmyRosner.com.
Okay, great.
And all my contact information is there too, so you can get anything you need there. You
Perfect.
Can shoot me a message or whatever. Yeah.
Perfect. I love that because you have online classes, hypnosis audio files, mindfulness cards, books, artwork to reduce stress. You wrote a book, or you've written several.
Yeah.
But the one that you gave me that I was looking over was Create Yourself, a 1-month journal. Can you talk about what led you to write that? Where did that come from? What are you wanting to accomplish? What divide are you trying to bridge, if you will, with that?
Yeah, so that was the first book that I wrote. It feels like it took me 20 years to write that book, and I only wrote 10 pages, and the rest is just a journal that you fill out.
Yeah.
But it took 20 years to write those 10 pages. I feel like the hypnotherapy education I've had, which includes the 10 years that I've been doing this as full-time as a profession, has been the missing piece to my education of brain science. And so I feel like everything's kind of filled out since graduate school and since being a professor, and it's a really cool feeling. But I noticed that even though I could see some positive changes going on in my clients, and their families could see, every so often they'd be like, shouldn't you go and see Amy again sometime soon, and I mean, I don't know, I don't even know if it's working. Yeah, I think you should go see her again.
Yeah.
And especially if they have a lot, that needs to be dealt with, it can be difficult before they start to really feel, movement in the right direction. If there isn't much going on, then you really feel it immediately, and it's pretty cool. But I noticed that some people that, especially that had a lot of stuff going on, they weren't focusing on what was going right. They were focusing on what was going wrong. And
interesting.
So I wanted them to start focusing on what was going right. And so I wanted to have some kind of a journal. I was looking for something that they could buy, or just a couple lines they could write, or something that would do the trick. But I couldn't come up with anything. So I just wrote a book, and published it on Amazon for anybody that wanted it. But I really just wrote it to give to my clients, and I wanted them for just a month to keep track of how they were feeling about what was going on in their lives, and get a better feel for what was going right and what they may want to change. And so, because they'd come in and I'd say, okay, so how did the week go? Oh, it sucked. Okay, so why was this week a sucky one?
Yeah.
Oh, because I had, another run-in with my mother, and this, that, and the other. And, I didn't, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but, so it went better. Yeah, it actually was better. So I guess it wasn't that bad. And then, this happened and that happened. I'm like, well, So what it was, does that happen all the time? Well, no, actually it usually happens a lot more. It didn't happen so much. So yeah. And by the end of the conversation, they're saying, actually it was a pretty good week,
I
and
love that.
and I just heard that over and over and over again. And I know that, you don't get what you want. You get what you focus on and expect.
Yeah.
And if you're focusing on the negative stuff all the time, you're just going to get more of the negative stuff, even when life's getting better. And so that's what the book is trying to foster in people. Again, I'm facilitating. I'm your Sherpa, and trying to facilitate you making a better internal environment for yourself, because you live up here in your head 24/7.
Yeah.
So if you make that a negative environment, I mean, it's going to be rough. You're going to be pretty exhausted a lot of the time.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick break from our podcast, bring you a word from our sponsor, Phoenix Moray, your creative genius. They have been my creative genius in creating my logo, so Phoenix Moray, thank you very much for that. I just wanted to let you guys know that they have officially opened up their publishing arm of their company, also known as Whimsallusion. So Whimsallusion is a great place for writers where they can submit any of their writings, regardless of genre even. It's really, really awesome. So there are no page counts that you need. You don't have to have an agent. You don't have to have a social media following. It's a great place for any aspiring writer or seasoned writer to be able to submit their transcripts or different pieces of what they're writing to be able to get good, honest feedback. Constructive criticism is the key to growth. And so you could join the Whimsallusion forum, where readers and writers can come together to create all their own magic, and we can all help each other do that. Now, writers can post their WIPs and get feedback from engaged readers. Members receive plenty of benefits, including free books, short stories, and discounts on select design services. This is personally where I'm going to publish different parts of my book or just get feedback on it. The Bridge Strategy, I'm super excited to bring you guys that, and I'll let you guys know more about that. Now, you can go to whimsallusion.com for more information. That is WHIMSILLSUION.com. All right, we'll get back to it.
It's a way of, there's some kind of free flow journaling, just a couple of pages. It doesn't take much. And I think there's right and wrong ways to journal, by the way. And so
explain
that's,
that.
The kind of journaling I want to see people do is, if you're going to start with a problem, like I feel bad because of something. Okay, fine. That's fine. Start with that. Start with whatever the issue is if you want to discuss an issue. If you want to just talk philosophy with yourself, that's fine too, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're going to bring up a problem, I think just dumping negative stuff, especially longhand writing, which is going to put it in your head a lot more effectively than either typing or just thinking about it. I think that's absolutely what you don't want to do. That's not what you want to focus on. That's not what you want to burn into your brain. But if you start with an issue and you decide, okay, yeah, I'm feeling like this in this situation, and I don't want to. I'd rather feel like this. Okay, so now it's a gap analysis. Here's where I am. Here's where I want to end up.
As opposed to just complaining.
Right. So let's figure out how I'm going to get there to where so I'm not feeling like this anymore. I'm feeling like that, the way I want to feel, and I'm going to do that by doing X, Y, and Z. Figure it out. It doesn't have to be what actually happens. Just take a stab at coming to some possible solution to doing that. Start working it out. Just doing that, just starting those juices flowing, is going to get your subconscious to start rallying and coming up with some ideas of how you can switch over, to how you want to feel. And that's kind of brute force reprogramming, and repetition is your best friend for stuff like that. So, if you don't like feeling a certain way, you want to feel another way, keep telling yourself you feel the way you don't. But again, it gets a little tricky because you can't lie to yourself because it's you. You're lying, right?
Yeah, it's all going on in your own head.
If you say, I love to exercise, and you don't want to get up and exercise, then you're lying to yourself. It's not going to work. But if you say, more and more now, I like how I feel after I exercise or something like that, then your brain's kind of like, okay, maybe. You can kind of like slide in under the radar. You got to get sneaky with brains. You got to get sneaky. You got to outsmart them. So You can do that with little tricks like that. And then, more and more now I enjoy exercise. More and more now I enjoy exercise. You keep like bombarding that in your head. Eventually you're going to say, I enjoy exercise. And you're not going to have that little voice in the back of your head going, I don't know, man. You know? And you're going to be able to do it and enjoy it.
Glenn gets quieter and quieter.
Yeah, you got to outsmart Glenn. Yeah, got to get sneaky with Glenn.
I love that though, because people talk about you can manifest anything. You just have to.
I'm calling BS on that whole thing. The thing of it is, you can manifest anything that is within your physical realm to manifest. Okay, like I will never be an NBA player for many reasons. It's just not going to happen. There's no way I can, that to me is toxic positivity.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem because I have people come in and say, oh, I, took this course from this guru, this online coach or something like that. And I got all excited and he or she had such wonderful things to say and, really got everybody pumped up. And there were thousands of us there and we're all pumped up and we're all excited. And we all have these great plans to take home with us about exactly how we're going to do things differently. And it lasts for like 2 weeks and then they're back to exactly where they were before they spent the, $7,000 or whatever to go to this, this conference. And I hear it all the time. And then they say, what's wrong with me? And I just want to like smack these people, not the ones saying that, the ones making them, think that, because they don't say anything about, if you have a real block, especially a survival related block, that's keeping you from moving forward, which is why you're here to try to move forward, this is not going to do it.
Yeah.
You have to get rid of that first, then come here and have a great time and come up with some great ideas and get all, hyped up about your next phase and go forth and have a great, next, experience. But you're not going to get anything out of that. You can chop the weed off and be in great shape for a little while. But if you don't get the roots, it's growing back. And then you're in the same place you were before. And I see it over and over. And I hate that people think there's something wrong with them when they go back to how they were before. Yeah. They're made to feel that way. And there's nothing wrong with them. They just had a block, at least one, that was keeping them from being able to get out of that program what they wanted to. And they didn't take care of that first. And they weren't told. Those people never tell anybody, take care of things like this first before you do this program, No,
so. I love that. And one of the, what I love is that, I'm all about, the law of attraction, attracting what you're thinking about, what you're saying about, if you're constantly focusing on the negative, then that's what's going to happen, But I think that attraction is built off of action, which I guess it's kind of a fun little wordplay. But attraction is built off of action. You have to have the action that goes with that in order to then actually attract those positive things, those good results that you want in your life. Yeah. If you don't do the work, then you can manifest it all you want.
It's just a dream.
If you're sitting in on your couch, manifesting it all day, it's not going to come to you, But if you want to actually manifest it, then yes, have that positivity, have that that law of attraction, but as you're going out and doing, I love that.
And I think it's important to realize that, you're the one making it happen. Sometimes you hear the whole law of attraction thing and it's people, just kind of waiting for, if I think about it hard enough, then it'll find me. Yeah. And it's a very passive stance. Yeah. And I think, that locus of control is very important. And if you're giving that control, that things in your life, how you think and feel and what you do is determined by some outside force of some kind, then you're in a very passive place. That there's no empowerment in that place. There's no increased, self-esteem, self-confidence, all these, all these things that you want to have to go forward and build the life that you want. But if that locus of control is within you, that, I am the one that controls my life, and I'm the one that manifests whatever it is that I decide I want. I can now see the opportunities when they come to me, and I can make opportunities for myself. And I may not know what's going on because it's in my subconscious and I'm not, aware of it, but it's me doing it. And if you realize that, that's empowering, right? That brings you strength. That brings you confidence. That brings you self-esteem.
Heck yeah.
That's what you want, not just for you, but for all the other people in your life that are looking at you, especially your kids, to say, yeah, I want to be like him. I want to be like her. I want to have that kind of life too.
I love that. I love that. And the ability that you have to then affect the lives around you, it goes up so much more because you're all of a sudden coming from a place of as an example, as opposed to, do what I say, not what I do type of a deal.
People don't want to be commanded, but they want to learn from others.
I love that.
Vicariously. Yeah.
I love that. And you're showing the way as opposed to,
you're walking the talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody the other day. I was talking about how, a lot of us are underwater in our lives. We're barely, keeping our head up here trying to breathe, and it's impossible for us to pull somebody else out of the water if we haven't gotten out ourselves.
Absolutely.
So we have to, we have to be able to, in order to help the people behind us, we have to have at least be a step or two ahead to be able to.
Which is why it's not selfish to take care of yourself and to make the best life you can for yourself. It's not, unless you're actively hurting somebody else by doing so, in which case you've got a much bigger problem.
Right.
But if you're not, like that, then you don't have to worry about it. You take the best care of yourself you can. Make time for yourself, for self-care, for making sure that you're living your best life. Because then you're going to be there for everybody else that you want to be there for. Yeah. Just your energy is going to rub off on people that you pass on the streets. Like you're going to be projecting this, really healthy vibe. And people are going to look at you from your, sister who's been trying to get her life together to your kids and, whoever else, and they're going to be looking at you going, okay, I want to do that.
Beautiful.
I want to be like that. Like,
Beautiful.
how's she doing that? I want to do that.
I love that.
And it gives them hope.
Thank you. Yeah, that's 100%. I love that. What you were saying, and just to kind of move on to the next part here, you talked about toxic positivity. One of the, and that's kind of a good segue into kind of our next section here. One of the biggest principles that we really like to focus on it with Bridging Divides is positivity. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you deal with it. But like you said, there is a toxic sort of positivity. It's having those rose-colored glasses on all the time and just ignoring, those other things. That's not what I'm talking about when I say positivity. I'm talking about how when life punches you in the face, knocks you on your butt, are you willing to get back up and keep fighting? Do you have that emotional resilience to keep saying, yeah, this is a fight that is worth fighting for? So this next segment we call our positivity prize fighter segment. You don't lose a prize fight by getting knocked down. You lose a prize fight by not getting back up. And so we want to hear about what are some of the positivity prize fighter moments in your life where you have just been dealt a blow or multiple right after, boom, 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 one right after the other. And how did you summon the strength to get up, spit the blood out, and keep fighting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we all go through those times. And if you don't get up and keep fighting, then you've just lost the whole game, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to be positive to get up. If you think that you're never going to make it, then you've lost.
Yeah.
You have to be positive, and you have to be like, you know what? I can get through this. Yeah, I don't know how, but I'll find my way through this. And yeah, so I've had a few moments.
Yeah, you were so in the questions that I sent you, you've been through some crap.
And I feel like overall in life, I've been extremely lucky. I hear stories every day from clients that have just, a lot of the most horrific stuff I've ever heard, didn't ever think it could happen to people. And yet here they are telling me, in my office.
But they're still here.
But they're still here, and they're still fighting, and they're in my office getting help with it to make things better and get on the right path. So it's pretty amazing to me what other people have been able to get up from. And just it's insane what people can bounce back from. It really is. And if anybody ever thinks, oh, there's no way I'm going to make it through this, I don't care what it is, you are absolutely wrong to think that. The things I've heard, I firmly believe there is nothing that people cannot get back up from and keep fighting and have the life they want going forward. Yeah. They're just, it's over.
If you're still alive, you still have power.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you share an experience or two kind of from your life?
Yeah, I had a 4-month period where my husband left. I got fired from my job and I had to file bankruptcy. 3 things I never ever thought would happen to me ever. It all happened in a 4-month period of time. And I remember I was so knocked out by that I remember getting into my car to go to the job that I was about to be fired from. And I go out to the garage and I open the car, or I go to open the car door, but I'm just looking at my car because I can't figure out how to get into it. Couldn't figure out how to get into my car. Had no idea. PhD, I can't figure out how to get into my car. That tells me I'm a little stressed, right? And I should
maybe a tad.
Maybe a tad. And I should probably just, put down the car keys and go, to bed for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to go back to work yet. Mm-hmm. So I called my boss and said, yeah, it's not happening. I can't figure out how to get in my car, so I'm definitely not going to drive anywhere,
It's a little important.
Yeah. So, so I've been there. And you do what you have to do. What was I going to do? I moved in with my mother. That was not optimal for anybody. As much as we love each other, we do not cohabitate well. Yeah. But it got me through, and I wound up managing apartments just to have something to do that could pay my bills really quickly, which I had a real problem with because the whole bankruptcy thing was because my ex was really bad at paying bills, and so they weren't getting paid, and I had a great credit rating, and it was going down every month because he was dragging me down with him, and I didn't have control over his paycheck anymore, so I couldn't make sure that our bills were paid, and so a couple of friends of mine, one of whom, they were both in real estate, and one of whom used to be a financial advisor, said, okay, you're coming to our house, I'm making Long Island iced teas, and we're going to talk about this because you have way more going for you than anyone else we know, and yet you've got like nothing, right? You're in this hole. And so that's what I did, and they staked me for getting my real estate sales license. I did the course training. 3 weeks later, I'm a licensed realtor, and trying to get that going, and wound up in property management, so I had a regular paycheck, and did that for like 5 years while I was trying to figure out what to do with myself. And I couldn't, my job was not, I got fired from the job because they basically used me for accreditation. They needed my credentials. It was an Oriental medical school, and they needed someone with a PhD in a research field in Western science in order to get a certain accreditation that they wanted. So they had me on that committee, and I was the academic dean of the school, and I was the head of the research committee and stuff. And then as soon as they got the accreditation, I walk in my office, and there's the president and her right-hand man just sitting there, not facing anybody, and she's like, hand over your keys.
Gosh,
and
that never feels good to
I
be
know. But you
used.
know what? I felt on the way home, I felt elated. I felt like I had been
interesting.
sprung, which
Why?
told me that it was so stressful being there. When you realize something is not right for you, it's a stressor to be there. And then when you're let go from that, like I felt like 50 pounds lighter on the trip home from that. So I knew that was a really good thing for me, even though I didn't know what I was going to do going forward.
That's fascinating, though, because if we use the whole prize fighting, metaphor, it's like as you're getting punched in the face, you are knowing that you're still going to be okay, that you're still in that act of
you're actually going to be better.
Forward. You're going to be better off.
You're going to be better for the punch in the face.
Oh man, that's crazy.
And I could totally feel that.
So obviously, we see you now. You say you've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
You're married.
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And you were telling me about your husband.
Just got married
Eric.
last year.
Oh, that's so
We've been
freaking
together
cool.
14 years, so we're feeling pretty rock solid.
Hey, no,
but
yeah,
we just got married last year. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's awesome. It just keeps getting better and better. I am so thankful for the things that happened prior to this so that I can be where I am now, because I'm just, I'm living my dream right now. And who knows if I would have gotten here if those punches hadn't happened, hadn't landed.
Hadn't given you that experience to be able to be where you're at now. Wow.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that, because
Sure.
it's not like a fun thing.
Oh, no, but it's kind of fun to talk about just because, it's relevant. Like we all go through stuff like that. We all get punched in the face.
Absolutely.
And it's important to be able to share it and go, you know what? Thank goodness that happened.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I'm really happy, it wasn't fun when it happened, but I'm really happy about it now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that it's important to note that, something that we were talking about is that we don't succeed in spite of our challenges. We succeed because of them.
Absolutely. 100%.
Those trials
100%.
can either be used to trial by fire. That fire can either be, if you let it, will burn you to a crisp, or it will propel you forward to greater heights than you could ever have achieved.
Sure.
On your own without that struggle. Yeah. So
they do leave scars though. And that's one of the things that I help people with, is getting rid of those scars from those kinds of experiences so that they can keep going forward without fear of what happened before.
To be able to actually allow it to propel them forward, as opposed to holding them back, breaking them up, whatever you want to
Right.
whatever
Oh,
you
I can't get
call it.
married again because look what happened last time.
And it's like,
no. Don't let your happiness in your next marriage hinge on what happened prior.
Because it's not what happened
It's not.
before.
Yeah, it's not the same
It's what's
situation
going
at
on.
all. But because there's that similarity, if they're both marriages, that's something that you can be bringing up old programming that came from being punched in the face, and your brain says, "Hey, that hurt. Let's not do that again."
Yeah, no thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a survival thing. Your brain's just looking out for you.
Wow.
It's protecting you 24/7. Everything it does that you don't like, thank it for, because it's doing it out of protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can change it.
I love that though. And that's also, like you were saying, you're able to give yourself compassion, so you can look back on the things that don't serve you anymore. You can look at your mistakes, quote unquote, and say, thank you. Thank you for getting me through that time of my life.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the help you've given me, but now I don't need that anymore.
Now I need you to have a new job. Yeah.
I love that. I
Now
love
that
that
part
And-
needs a new job.
And that is that, moves us away from that toxic shame-based way of thinking, and really just allows ourselves to learn from what we've been through, as opposed to letting it hinder us from
Right.
growing and succeeding.
And again, there's that locus of control issue. You get through something like that, you get punched in the face, and you get back up, and you attribute it to some external, power or person or whatever. That's not going to be very empowering, and you're going to be scared to death next time you're in a similar situation because of what happened before. Oh, I was just lucky that I got saved from that. But if you understand that it's you getting yourself up and getting back in the ring for another round, then that you take with you, and that
100%.
that strengthens you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's, if you've been, you have an experience in your life that, controlled how you're feeling at the time, and it was just this awful, awful thing, and now you've gotten through it, obviously, because you're here now, right? But why give what happened in the past more control over the future of your life when you don't need to?
Exactly.
Let it go.
That's exactly what we do. We give control to other things or people or whatever, and then we feel powerless, and we just hope that everything will be okay. And hope's a double-edged sword. It can be a wonderful thing, or it can be a horrible thing, depending on the situation. You can't be going through life just hoping everything's going to be okay.
Right.
You have to realize that you have agency.
Yeah.
You can make your life what you want it to be. Are there going to be boundaries? Yeah. I'm not going to be in the NBA, but am I going to be able to do something I love and be able to, create the kind of life? This is why I called my book Create Yourself, because it's about you creating the life that you want.
Love that.
And you can do that.
I love that. And I'm a firm believer that we're all creators, and whatever somebody's, religious beliefs are. I mean, I'm a Christian, I believe in God and that sort of a thing. He created the universe and all that. But regardless of what you believe in, I think that understanding that we are all creators, I think is so empowering, like you're saying, and that seems to be the theme of what we're saying. But also, it unlocks something, to realize that you are a creator.
Gives you power.
That you have the power to change the world around you, to change your world that you live in. You have the power to do that, and I think that is incredible.
Yeah.
I love that, and we're kind of getting to the end of our time here, and so. I just want to thank you again for being on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Mitch.
Sharing your experiences and what you're doing, and with everybody that's watched today. It has just been a blast talking to you. And please, again, visit her on her website, amyrosner.com. So that they can have access to the many amazing things that you have to offer, and the tools and resources that they can take full advantage of. We also want to remind you guys to please leave comments down below of what you thought of our episode here today and the benefit that you got from it, but also questions. We want questions. We want you to interact with Bridging Divides, and if there are questions you have for Amy, please put them in the comments, and we'll reach out to her and get those answers for you. As always, I love you guys, and keep being amazing.